All right, veterans, welcome to another episode of Veterans Nation. I'm Trevor Scott, here with Rick Seaman, Michelle Ladd, Rydell Danzy, and our special guest, Arne Schmidt. And before we get to Arne here, we're going to dedicate this episode to all these soldiers in the 1st Cav who fought in the Play Coup campaign in 1965.
And you will see why that's so appropriate. All right, on a previous Veterans Network poll, our viewers were asked what was their favorite war movie since the whole John Wayne era. And the number one response was We Were Soldiers, right? Perfect, with our 1st Cav division. And that's the story of the Battle of the Yadrang Valley. So this highly acclaimed film starred Mel Gibson as Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore, and we are very happy to have Arne Schmidt here today, who is the executive producer on that film. So welcome. Thanks for joining us.
All right, Arne. Glad you're here. Yes. So, and now we're not here to complain about, any tactical inaccuracies of this film or why it wasn't like the book. And there was a book that Colonel Moore wrote, I believe in the 1980s?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And Galloway.
He wrote it along with Galloway, who was the combat photographer, journalist that was out there in that battle and ended up fighting side by side along with the Cav guys.
And the book was called We Were Soldiers Once and Young.
We Were Soldiers Once and Young.
Right.
And I like that title too. And
Everybody did.
Everybody did, except what the studio.
Didn't fit on the marquee there.
Yeah. No, because We Were Soldiers Once and Young, it made you feel something there. I mean, it said something. But in either case, you could take any war film and pick it apart. It wasn't like the book, or they wouldn't have done it exactly like this tactically, and you're going to have that with every war film ever made,
Right.
When you have a book, the book's kind of a self-narration of the whole story, where in film, you have to show it with images and dialogue and create the drama that these guys created. And I think what we're going to do here is we're going to examine how your director, who also wrote the screenplay, Randall Wallace, how he and yourself, as executive producer, you guys pretty much busted your balls to create a very hard to achieve balance between drama and accuracy. And I salute you guys for doing quite a great job of that, Arne.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so tell us about how you saw this, like a book versus a film medium, and just how to get off the ground. How did you meet Randall, and how did that all start?
Well, he had already written the script. He had read the book, and I think on the overleaf of the book it said something about, Hollywood never gets it right, but this is what really happened. And that caught his attention, and he met with Hal Moore and Joe Galloway, and went through a lot of effort. It took about 2 years to get clearances and all the names and everything to allow us to use the real names of real soldiers and all that.
Wow.
But he wrote it with the determination to not let it become a Hollywood movie, and to make it as authentic as he could.
Right.
And the book, I'm not sure how many pages. It's probably close to 600 pages. The nature of a movie is that it equates to about 120 pages. So you can't possibly fit everything from a book into any movie, and so things have to be abbreviated, and you try and pick the highlights to tell the story with. There were some Medal of Honor. There was at least one other Medal of Honor winner that isn't even in the movie. I couldn't tell you his name anymore, but a guy in off from the main unit threw himself on a grenade at one point to save his comrades.
Right.
Just wasn't room to tell all that. And of course, the 2 helicopter pilots won the Medal of Honor, and Hal Moore won the DSC.
Right.
And Randy kept in close contact with Hal and Joe Galloway and Sergeant Savage. They were there at the very beginning. They spoke to us the day before we started filming at a church on the base of Fort Benning. And they just got up and talked about what it was like and everything. And I think it really moved everybody on the project to try and be as authentic as we could and to honor what they really did and not try to make something else out of it. And that's Randy's got a big heart, and he understands the military, and he understands the sacrifice. He actually went through, they have at Fort Benning, they have a Ranger, what do they call it, Ranger Olympics or something like that.
Yeah.
They have a 2-week Ranger.
Best Ranger?
Best Ranger, thank you.
Yeah.
And he went through the Ranger training with the guys. He's, you know, he was a 3rd-degree black belt in karate and all. So he's a very fit person, and you know, lived it with them for a while. Live rounds over the head and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
he was totally immersed, and he's pretty much the kind of guy that doesn't want to tell it the Hollywood way. So,
And I think he did a great job. I mean, you know, finding that balance between, you know, reality versus drama, book versus film, you know, 2 different mediums, and one's got to be one way and one's got to be the other way.
yeah.
But like you were saying about the home front stuff, I thought that was just, you know, so well done. And, you know, I rewatched it about a week ago because I knew you were coming in and we were going to be talking about this, but I went out in my man cave all by myself Sunday afternoon. I sat there and bawled 4, 5, 6, 7 times. I mean, you know, it's like you say, it was a tremendously emotional film. And with the home front, Arnie, you know, a lot of people have to remember this was really the beginning of major combat unit involvement in the Vietnam War.
Right.
Now, in those days, you trained in the States as a unit, like they portrayed in the movie, and then you went over as a unit. So you were a family.
Exactly.
The wives hung out together at home.
That was a big difference. In Vietnam later, they, you know, one guy would show up, he'd be the new guy.
Right.
Or 2 guys would show up.
Exactly.
And there was this very different dynamic. And the new guy, nobody cared about the new guy because he was, you know, he wasn't one of the guys. And, you know, it seemed like it evolved, and it went from pretty much World War II style at the very beginning, somewhere around the time when we needed more guys and we went into the draft, we started shipping guys over. It changed the whole nature of things. And
Absolutely,
he felt that had a really severe impact.
Yeah, because I know when I got there in late '68, it was all just replacements. You know, like you say, 1, 2, 3 guys come out to a unit. You know, you're the FNG, and you're going, oh my God, what do I do? And here's all these guys that have, you know, seen it all, been battle hardened, and they're worried about you because, you know, who's this new guy? Is he going to get us in trouble? Does he, you know?
Right.
So you got to learn fast.
Right.
You had to learn fast, and but that was a really important dynamic, like you say. And then you got to look at Colonel Moore. Some may say, well, was he that naive to just go traipsing in there, or was he gung-ho, or was there not enough intelligence? Because they literally,
I think it was not enough intelligence.
Not enough intelligence, you know. I mean, it all started with the Special Forces camp that got overrun, the CIDG camp. 12 Green Berets, 300 some Montagnard indigenous locals, you know, fighters. And they were easy pickings for the North Vietnamese army that was just holed up right there on the Cambodian border. And the North Vietnamese commander, his plan was, let's take out that Special Forces camp, and they'll send in an ARVN division to reinforce them, and we'll ambush them when they show up. And that's exactly what he got his wish. And then his second wish, correct me if I'm wrong, was, and after that, maybe they'll send these new helicopter soldiers that the Americans got that just showed up, and we can learn how to fight the helicopters. So he was taking a big gamble there. Yeah, and here's a comment that came in with one of the votes that I revisited here just this morning, and this is from a Marine combat vet, Cap platoon vet, 1968. And his comment was, every war has had its miscalculations and fuck-ups, but that analysis usually comes as hindsight, and it's not to detract from the bravery of the grunts on the ground. So he gets it, and just like, you could always say, oh, why didn't they think about that? They were going into enemy territory, and why didn't we carpet it with B-52s first? Well, the B-52s, if you look historically, had only been used once before tactically in South Vietnam, and that was in June of that year. This took place in October?
Yeah.
So that was only 3 months before they did their first B-52 tactical bombing in below the DMZ,
Right.
on a Viet Cong stronghold in Three Corps, which was south of where this film took place. And but sure, this story is about an experiment. A military experiment, not just on our part, but on the enemy's part. The enemy's they were trying to feel us out, What are these helicopter soldiers going to be like? How do we fight them? And we were experimenting with, the air cav concept. I mean, that's what that whole training thing was about that the film covered.
Exactly.
How this was new. We're going to put foot soldiers in helicopters.
I know when I called the Army, the film liaison office, to ask for help in making the movie, they said, we've been waiting for the call. They'll give us all the help we want.
Right.
It allowed us to make the movie, actually. It may not have gotten made without their cooperation, because we had to put it together so quickly. And they allowed us to film at Fort Benning, and they gave us complete run over Fort Hunter Liggett in Central California, which Hal Moore said looked like where they fought.
Right.
So we had Hal telling us where we could shoot. The Army saying you can shoot there, you can do anything you want all night long, and blow stuff up, which it's hard to find. State parks and stuff like that. To do that, and you have to restore everything.
Let me guess who negotiated all that. Would his name by chance be Arne Schmidt?
Yeah, of course. But it also, it gave us the ability to screw the project together in a very short period of time. We had 9 weeks to prepare the movie, which was
Oh my God.
kind of half of what we normally do.
Yeah.
And so, in talking to the Army, that first conversation, they said, you may not know it, but this book is required reading at the War College at West Point. Huh. So tactically, what Hal Moore did is still being studied at West Point. So
wow.
I don't know what we did wrong, but I think we got it pretty right. Hal Moore on his own website was saying that he approved everything in the film except the taxi cabs coming to notify the women at home with the telegram.
Right.
Happened, but it didn't happen throughout. So that was we continued the taxi cab because it was so emblematic,
Sure.
Somebody see a cab drive up in front of their house at Fort Benning and they'd panic, And so we thought that was pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
And Hal Moore's own wife was the one that got that fixed. I'm not quite sure exactly when, but she organized it so that it would be there was a ladies group at the base, and someone from the ladies group, as well as an officer and a chaplain or somebody else like that, would come and speak to the family instead of it just being a taxi cab or a telegram. But that did happen.
Oh,
it just didn't happen throughout.
And that was just so effective as far as the dramatic end of that movie. I mean, it was just.
I can't believe you guys only had 9 weeks of pre-production. That's amazing.
9 weeks from the day I started.
Wow. It's such an amazing amount of logistics involved in putting the movie together.
Yeah, but the good thing was that Hunter Liggett didn't require much preparation. We had a battlefield. We had to create, the anthill, big anthill. But, for a movie company, that wasn't much. And then some brush and trees and stuff to kind of create an environment there. And then Fort Benning, we were shooting Fort Benning, so all we had to do was eliminate modern things that wouldn't have been there in 1964, 63.
Yeah.
So.
Right. You guys did a hell of a job, and
thanks.
It was a lot of realism, and a lot of our votes included comments, and they were, all for the most part favorable. And every now and then somebody's going to nitpick, tactically again. But here again, you have to remind everybody, this is a film. It's intended to tell a story, tell it as accurately as it possibly can. and make it entertaining and dramatic, because this film's going to cost millions upon millions of dollars, and the people that put that money up want it made as a film.
Right.
They don't want you to make a book on the screen. So those are your constraints. And now, was the production, was the studio friendly with you? I mean,
Oh yeah.
I mean,
actually, the head of production at the studio was a Vietnam vet. And
great.
That had to happen.
yeah, Fred Gallo. And
Yeah.
you know, he by nature he wasn't a gung ho kind of a guy, and you know, I love this story and everything, but you know, he had a good attitude about everything, having experienced it himself. I think tactically, you know, going back to that, you know, the one thing we did for the sake of the movie that wouldn't be exactly accurate is the distances between the anthill and the caves. And, you know, in the real world, there'd probably been 1,000 yards or more.
Right.
But, you know, if you're filming Vietnamese attacking from 1,000 yards away, they're very effective. Their guns are going to kill you and everything.
Yeah.
But they're like this big in the picture. So, you know, we just compressed those
They
distances.
have to be photographed.
Yeah, and made it, you know, gave it the feeling. If you were really in combat and you hear bullets whizzing by your head, and, you know, you got that feeling.
Feels
but,
close.
You know,
You're
feels
plenty close. Yeah.
But you know, that helped, you know, create that.
Right.
feeling as
Well, I mean, look at Private Ryan. Look at The Longest Day.
Yeah.
The Normandy invasion. Same thing.
Yeah.
Everything had to be pushed
The
together.
Big Red One.
Big Red
Excuse
One.
me for interjecting, but I worked on that.
You
one
were-
too.
yeah, you
I
did
wasn't
that.
a producer, but
No.
that was very authentic.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was
What
written
Big Red
by,
One was.
Sam
Yeah.
Fuller, who was a
Sure. Sure.
corporal and saw
And,
everything that was in that movie.
Yeah. But
I digress.
I think all in all, I mean, I salute you guys. Man, I think you just did a tremendous job with you know, bridging that gap of you know, drama and reality and
Thanks.
filmmaking.
And as you mentioned earlier, just that human element, making sure that,
Yeah.
that there was a real correlation between the human being that was fighting, not just an army.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's Randy. I mean, he's such a brilliant writer and director, and you know, he just understands the human nature, the human aspects of things, and he dug that out and brought that to the front. You know, and it's some people were going, well, what do we need that for? You know, it's right away. You know, when you get into meetings with the studio and so forth and so on, and everybody, the beginning of a movie, the studio is always wanting to make it for less money, and you know, this is kind of long. Do we really need that? Do we? And Randy fought and got what he wanted, but you know, those kinds of things can get dumped from a movie pretty simply, and it would have saved some money, but it wouldn't have had the same emotional impact.
Right.
So thanks for doing it right.
Sure.
Yeah, right. And we've dedicated it in the beginning of the show, but I'd personally like to dedicate this particular segment to everyone who was involved, not just in that campaign, and not just those with the first cab, but everybody that fought in Vietnam. And I salute all of you, and I salute Arne and his director, Randall Wallace, for giving us a great movie to tell the story.
So, Arne, what are you working on now?
I have a project called Hunter Killer. It's based on a book called Firing Point by George Wallace, former sub commander on LA class subs. And it's at Relativity. We just hired a director, and hopefully we'll start production later in the fall.
Wow, that'd be good.
Another
Great.
authentic military story.
Great.
Good luck on that.
Coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we just want to thank you again for your time and your generosity of information.
My pleasure.
Again, from all of us here at Veterans Nation, welcome home, vets.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
on the corner, suitcase in my hand, Jackson's corset and chains in a vest, baby. Me, I'm in a rock and roll band. Riding a Beckett, those were different times. Forward studied blues of verse, the ladies roll their eyes. You know they're saying, Sweet Jane, oh Sweet Jane, Sweet Jane. Now Jackie is a banker, and Jane, she is a clerk.